Hey there! I'm on my way to Hungary's most touristy place. Well, at least outside the castle district of Budapest. But this is different. I'm in the countryside and the place where I'm going is right over there, behind these hills. So this is the peninsula of Tihany, the peninsula in Lake Balaton. And where I'm going to is the town, the main town of this peninsula, which is also named Tihany. An interesting thing is that the name Tihany comes from a Slavic word meaning quiet. And there are definitely some quiet places around here, especially if you go walking up these hills. There are lots of hiking trails. But the place where I'm going is more like the absolute opposite of quiet. So let's go. Just left my bike near the main parking lot where most people, of course, park their cars. And what I'm going to do now is just a tour of the main tourist trail in this town. So I would say if you have already been here, this video will probably be not so interesting for you. So in that case, better stop watching. And here we already got the first lavender shop. So there is some tradition of growing lavender in this region, which has started, I think, in the early 20th century. And during communist time, it became less popular because, you know, lavender is not one of the things you absolutely need for your living. But during the past, I would say 10 to 20 years, it became more popular again, but more for touristy reasons. So, well, not that much traffic here, but you have to know that it's a really hot day, one of the hottest this year. Got about 35 degrees. Nice restaurant here. At least it looks nice. Not so sure about the actual quality of food. Of leather stuff, which is normally actually still quite cheap in Hungary, even in touristy places like this. Okay, so this will go on like this, I would say, for another 300-400 meters. I'm not sure if it will be interesting to film all the time. But anyway, no matter how touristy this place is, it's really a nice location. And we're getting closer to the main attraction of this town. really not too many tourists here today. But, you know, look at this view. Look at this view over the northeastern part of Lake Balaton. With lots of sailing boats all over the place. So this is really outstanding, I think. And on the top of this hill, this is the Benedictine Abbey of Tihany. So this is actually the center of it all, so to say. So you have to admit that these Benedictine monks really had a taste for great locations. So Tihany is one of the few places in Hungary outside Budapest where you can see a significant number of tourists from outside Europe, and they typically are on a city tour, staying a few nights in Budapest. So that's the Abbey, and one of the most popular day trips is the one to Tihany, to Lake Balaton, which is about 120 kilometers. So you can go here by bus in about 2 hours, stay for a few hours, have lunch, and then go back to Budapest. So that's the Abbey. And I think I didn't mention that Tihany is also part of the 2023 European Culture Capital event. So it's not only Veszprém, it's also basically the whole northern shore of Lake Balaton. And all of this has been a construction site for about, I would say, 2 years. But now it's at least almost finished. So let's go to the top of this hill, which is actually a really nice park. Okay, part of it seems to be a graveyard. What is this? Maybe you have to view it from the other side. Okay, so it's... Oh, I think this is just maybe to get water for the plants growing on the graves. I don't know. So this is quite interesting. So it's a depiction of Golgotha, obviously, but what I find special are these crosses. You know, they seem to be made of complete tree trunks. Normally you see the crosses made of rectangular bars, but these are real, not real, but they look like tree trunks. So this is something I have never seen before. I don't think you can see this very well, but here you have a view on the so-called Balaton, the inner lake, which is a small lake inside the peninsula. And in the background, I don't think you can see this, there is the other side of Lake Balaton, the southwestern side. So really few tourists here. So I'm planning to tell you some more things about tourism at Lake Balaton in general. At least that's what I'm planning. So when you come here for the first time, I recommend to go inside this church. And there is also a museum attached to it. I'm not gonna do that because I have been here at least 2 times before, and the entrance fee is, well, for Hungarian circumstances it is quite high. It's about €7.50. So these are prices which, well, a few years ago I would have expected that maybe in Italy, not even in Germany. And anyway, in Germany it's normally free to go inside churches, so it's very uncommon to have to pay an entrance fee for the churches. But still, I would highly recommend going there if you haven't been there before. So I'm already on the way back down to the main street. So yeah, there are really plenty of those lavender shops that actually haven't existed 5 years ago. Seems to be quite a good business concept. Over there is another quite touristy place. It's the Paprika House. See all this dried paprika or chili around the entrance. So paprika is definitely typical for Hungary, but actually not so much for this region. So here at Lake Balaton there is not so much paprika being grown. Okay, I would say that's it. That was the main tourist trail. You can have another view at the abbey over there, together with the Paprika house. So that's the point where most people actually decide to go back to the parking lot, maybe have some food first, and then drive back to wherever they came from. But as I said, there is much more to this peninsula than just the main town. And I think I'm first go take my bike and then have a little tour to Balaton, at least, which is also not so touristy as here, but still quite a touristy place. And there I will also try to explain some more things about tourism in this region in general. I decided to take a different route back to show you this part as well. Looks like there is a probably very expensive piece of real estate still available. Here we are at Visahang Dom. So Visahang means echo, the Hungarian word for echo. And there is one place, I don't know exactly where it is, but somewhere around here, where you can hear quite a good echo if you make some loud noise. Let's try to find it. I think you have to go up there a little bit more. So here is the Echo restaurant, but I still didn't find out where the exact place is where you can hear this echo, which is a little bit embarrassing because I'm supposed to know this place quite well. I've been here many times, but to be honest, not so much on the most touristy routes. So maybe it's up here. Yeah, you can see that it's quite a religious place. There's another Golgotha depiction and I think it's called a Calvaria. These hills where you can walk up and have 14 stations, 7 on both sides. I'm not sure what these chairs are supposed to be for. Okay, unfortunately these places like this are often used as a toilet, but that's the way it is when you have many people, many tourists in one place. So I don't think that's really the echo place, but here you can see, okay, so Visahang Dom, 300 meters, 5 minutes, this way. So looks like this is directly where this restaurant is. Okay, so that's the restaurant, and I just heard that the place where you can hear the echo is actually down there. Let's see. Okay, that seems to be it. Still, I cannot really imagine where the sound should be reflected here to create an echo. But this seems to be the place. I'm not in the mood for screaming around here, so I will not try it out. But yeah, that's the famous Visahang Dom, the Echo Hill. There are lots of restaurants here, and as you can see, you are not restricted to Hungarian cuisine. You have international food like doner kebab here as well, if you really want to. Slowly getting towards the quieter places of Tihany. So you can still see the town and the abbey over there. This is Belső tó, a little lake. Belső means inner, the inner lake, because it's inside the peninsula, which is inside the large lake, Lake Balaton. And over there are some szürkemarha, grey cattle. So let me tell you a little bit generally about the history of tourism in this region, in the Balaton region, during the past, I don't know, 30, 40 years. So the first time I came here was about maybe 30 years ago. I'm not sure about that. So to summarize it, the Lake Balaton has changed from a simple and cheap place into a fancy and expensive place. So at least it got much more expensive. So let's look at which tourists used to come here and which kinds of tourists come here now. Now there is one group of tourists who didn't change a lot during the past, I would say 40 or even 50 years, and that's middle-class Hungarian people from the surrounding towns and villages. Some also came from the larger towns like Budapest, Győr, Sopron. So these have always been here and they still come here. And yeah, middle class in Hungary of course means that's not really people with too much money on their hands. So they liked this for being a nice place, but also for being a cheap place. Then I would say in the 70s, another group of tourists appeared that came from farther away. they were Germans from Eastern Germany, the so-called German Democratic Republic. So why did they come here? That's simple, because they didn't have a chance to go anywhere else. So they were not allowed to travel freely, and Hungary was one of the very few places where they could go without too many problems. So many people from Eastern Germany, from the German Democratic Republic, came here. And the interesting thing is, it was also much easier for Western Germans to come here than to visit their friends and maybe families in Eastern Germany. So often the ones from Eastern Germany and the ones from Western Germany met here in Hungary to get together. So that period took until, of course, 1990, and after that the people from Eastern Germany were, of course, allowed to travel anywhere, and that's actually what they did. So they checked out other places and didn't come here, at least not that often anymore. So you can see I'm not sure if you can see it, but I know that the water level is relatively low, but it still is higher than during the last year. Because last year we had very few rain, very little rain. This time it was a little bit better, so I hope the lake is filling up again. So normally everything which is gray, where you have this muddy sand here, will fill up. Okay, so I was actually talking about a different topic. After 1990, the main reason why people came here was that it's not only a nice place, but also it has been very, very cheap. So I remember the first time I came here, I think it was in 1993, you could have a meal, lunch or dinner, for about €1. And it was okay. So that was the 90s. Then in the late 90s, a different group of tourists appeared. Those were people mostly from Germany and Austria, wealthier people who bought real estate in Hungary. Many of them were older people who were no longer working and wanted to spend the rest of their life in this place, saving a lot of money and still having a good time. So they were not, or mostly not, the super rich people, but they were wealthier because they were able to buy real estate. So they also had some expectations. So they wanted to go to fancier restaurants and wanted to go shopping some specific, maybe luxurious things. So that led to a much higher quality of everything here in Lake Balaton, at least to a certain extent. Of course, it also meant that the prices were rising, but it wasn't that bad at that time. Then a little bit later, I would say in the early 2000s, another group appeared. Those were also, or still are, also wealthier people, but not from different countries. Instead, they were wealthier people from Hungary, mostly from Budapest, where, of course, most of the rich people, rich Hungarians, live. So they came here, bought houses, apartments. Some of them also bought yachts, and they came here, or still come here, of course, with their fancy cars, SUVs. Now electric cars are quite popular. So, of course, these people, they wanted to show off. They like to show what they have. So I have to say, like in most countries outside Germany, people really like to show what they have. So there is not much understatement here, which is, I find it's okay, but as a German you have to get used to it. So these people, of course, also caused an increase of quality. There were even more fancy restaurants, there were even fancier shops, and again things got a little bit more expensive. So I would say that was the period maybe from 2005 to 2019. And yeah, you know, then came the pandemic, then came the war in Ukraine, and this caused some serious inflation. So I would say most of the prices have kind of doubled during the past 3 years. So that means they are approximately on the same level as in Germany, which is still acceptable for a person like me who earns his money in Germany. But here in Hungary you still have, I think on average, something like half of the salary as in Germany and other Western European countries. So that's a real issue. And also the people who really, also the people from Germany, Austria, France, Netherlands, that really don't have a lot of money, that really need to save money. I'm not sure if they will come back in the future, because they could go to Italy, to Spain for approximately the same prices. So that's inflation during the past 3 years, and I'm not sure how it will develop. So of course when the prices rise, of course it's bad for tourism, it's bad for the tourists, but on the other hand, at least some of the money, some of the additional money will make the salaries of the people who work here higher. And that is actually a positive aspect of this. But on the other hand, they of course also have to live with this inflation. So it's definitely an issue what has happened during the past 3 years, and I'm really wondering how it will continue. So anything else to say about being a tourist in Hungary? Well, at least one thing. So I still absolutely recommend coming here. You know, Hungary has a really bad marketing, but yeah, marketing is not necessarily the right term. So many people don't consider it a place where they want to go, and that's also for political reasons. So the media, or at least most media in Germany, are presenting a really negative image of this country. And that's because, yeah, of course, the leader, the Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, is also somebody I do not like at all. He's a, well, I'm not going to use any derogatory words, but he's definitely not my favorite Prime Minister. But then, from my point of view, this is absolute no reason not to visit this country. Because, well, some people support him, but actually most of them don't. You don't really notice a lot of the effects of his politics here. At least not directly. So From my point of view, you shouldn't really consider politics too much when you travel to a country. And this is definitely one of the most underrated and most interesting countries in Europe. So I think that's it for today. Have a nice time. Hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye.